Hi folks, this is Kyle here at Paradise Fibers, and today we're going to talk about one of the new upgrades that Kromski came out with for their Harp rigid head loom. This is the rigid head loom. They make it in 3 different sizes, 16, 24, and 32. Doesn't matter which width you have, this upgrade kit will work on any of them. What the upgrade kit basically entails is replacing our plastic ratchet and pawls system with metal ones, which is going to allow you to have extremely high tension on your warp and also extend the life of the loom itself. These tended to be a little bit problematic in the past, so they came up with this update that's pretty much going to last you a lifetime. Your upgrade kit is basically this little package here. It's $32, comes with all the parts you need to upgrade your loom. If you bought your loom prior to June of 2014, this kit will be needed. If you don't know when you bought it, simple way to find out, just look at your cog and pawls. If they're plastic, it's an older style and you're going to want to update that. The update is called the Forte. The new style of the loom is the Kromski Harp Forte. So let's get at it. I'll show you how to go through this step by step and quickly and easily get this done for you. Basically, the first step, what we're going to do is disassemble the entire frame of the loom, because we're going to have to put some washers and the new ratchet on our cloth beam and our warp beams. So make sure you have a nice clean surface. You will need a couple tools for this task. Some Phillips screwdrivers, some tape would be nice, and I'm going to use a power drill because you are going to be taking off a lot of screws, and it'll make the job a little bit quicker for you. So we don't need our reed. Make sure if you did have a project on there, you take that off, because it's not possible to do it with it on. We only need to really disassemble this heddle block. This heddle block can stay on. So the heddle block on the side that has your ratchet and pawls on, let's start there. We're going to take that off completely, and I'm just going to put the washer and the wing nut back on it, and we're going to set this aside. Next thing we're going to do, to take this loom apart, we have to disassemble the support pieces, and we have to take off the dowel end caps. It doesn't matter which one you start with, what order you do it in, they all have to come off. So I'm going to take off these caps first. Make sure you don't lose any screws. Keep those in a nice neat place so you can come back to them. I'll show you a little trick, what I like to do. So these just pop right off, and you can take your screws and just throw them back in there a little bit so you don't have loose screws floating around. Okay, next thing we need to do is loosen the support beams on the side of the cog and pawl, which is this side here. We got to take those off so we can get our cloth beam and our warp beam out. Consists of 4 screws right on the side here. Take these 4 screws out, and voila. I'm going to screw these back in a little bit here so I don't lose them or have them roll off the table. Okay. So another thing I found that would make it a little bit simpler when you're doing this process is you can go ahead and take your apron rods off and set them aside. We're not doing anything with those. It's just another thing you can kind of get out of your way, and they're really easy to slip back on. So now that we have this disassembled, we can go ahead and set this out of the way temporarily. First thing we're going to do is take off the old ratchets. It's 2 screws on the end. They're the exact same screws that they send with the upgrade kit. I'd recommend using the new screws. So we're going to unscrew those, take those off, and then we're going to put our new ratchets on. And like I said earlier, these new ratchets are metal. It's a very nice upgrade. I highly recommend it if you do have this loom and you have the plastic cog and pawls. You'll never have to worry about anything again as far as tension, and you can pretty much guarantee that they're going to last you forever. They're very nice metal. They also, part of this upgrade wasn't just the metal cog and pawls or ratchet and pawls. It also has kind of a locking system to it. It includes a rare earth magnet, and that's going to keep your pawl close to your ratchet. So it's really easy if you're doing this with one person, and most rigid heddle weavers only have one person. When you're advancing your warp or dressing your loom or anything, you can just flip the front one and leave the back one. For example, as you're rolling your warp on, you can leave the back one locked, and if you ever have to stop or walk away from it, or if you're constantly pulling tension on it, it's always going to stay in that locked position. So it's just going to click and roll. It makes it much easier on the life of a weaver. The instructions that come with it are these 2 pages here. They did have this nice schematic type stuff on the front that is basically a layout of all the parts that are included in this kit. So make sure that you do go through that and you do have every part, because you will need every part. If you get confused on which part's which, these are 2 size sketches. So you can take your screw or a washer and just set it on the picture, and if it matches up, you know that's the right one. Other than that, it's really my kind of instructions, pictures. I like pictures, so we'll go ahead and go through this, and it kind of shows you what not to do and gives you a layout. This is probably one of the most important parts, is how you assemble your cloth beam and your warp beam. So now that we have those off, we're going to go ahead and pull our ratchets out of our kit. And it doesn't matter which way these are facing at the moment. There is a front and a back to these. The back side is flat, and the front side actually has a tapered hole on it. So the tapered hole is the side that you'll actually be inserting the screw on, so that way the screws will sit flush on here. When you do install these, you can go to your first one and just put it on and we'll screw it down. But when you actually install it in the loom, you want to make sure that both of these are pointing towards the inside of the loom, and I'll go into more detail on that once we get these installed. So we'll go ahead and put these on right now. And these are a little bit different. They do go in at an angle, so don't be worried and feel like you're screwing them in wrong. They do not go straight in. They are angled. About lost my screw there. Alright, there's one. We'll put the other one on. Okay, our ratchets are now installed. Next thing we're going to do is, it comes with shim washers. I'll show you those. You'll have 4 in this package, and we're going to put those on the other side of both the cloth beam and your warp beam, and that's just going to help with the spacing, since this is an upgrade kit and all the parts aren't the exact same thickness. So you'll see these 4 thin washers, they call them shim washers. They're going to go 2 on each side, just on the opposite side that we put our ratchets on. So you can go ahead and slide those on. And then I'm going to go ahead and just slide these in the hole right now so I won't lose these washers. And remember when I was talking about these pointing inwards, if I put this on, this is my warp beam, or I'm sorry, yeah, this is my warp beam. These teeth right now are pointing towards me. So looking at it from the side, they're pointing counterclockwise. That is the wrong way. You don't want that. So you know that this has to go up front to where your cloth beam is going to be. And now you can see they're still pointing counterclockwise, but they're pointed towards the center of the loom. So we come over to our warp beam. We slide this one on, and this is also turning clockwise, whereas that's turning counterclockwise, but it's both are pointing towards the reed. So your cloth beam is going to be screwed counterclockwise. Your ratchet, your warp beam, is going to be clockwise. Just make sure they're both pointed towards the center, otherwise it will not work. So next what we're going to do is replace our pawls. So there's these plastic pawls on here. We're going to go ahead and take these off and then insert the metal pawls with a washer on them. And these screws are about hand tight. When we put these on, we don't want to get them too snug, and I will explain more. All right, so we got those off. We'll set those aside. We'll get our new ones out. There's also a right or wrong way to install these. Okay, so as you install these, kind of looks like a birdie, maybe, a swan. We'll call this the point. You want the point pointing towards the outside of the frame or towards this hole. So that is the right way. That is the wrong way. Right? Wrong. So that point pointed right towards that hole. What we're going to do is we're going to take our same screw that we used to hold the old pawls in. We're going to slide that in. Here is where the two small washers come into place. That is going to go on the back of your pawl like so. And we're going to screw it into the frame. So the washer goes in between the pawl and the frame of your loom. We'll get that down so it's a little bit snug, but it's got some wiggle room. We'll do the same on this side. The point points outward, like that. Go ahead and screw it down fairly snug. Okay, so that is done. Now that is pretty much 80% of the upgrade. We're going to go ahead and assemble the loom back together now. So what I'm going to do is start by putting on the end caps on the side that does not have the cog and pawls, just to keep these cloth beam and warp beams in place. And that is simply just putting the cap back on and screwing those back down. And I will show you what I'm doing on the other side as well. Okay, so those are in place. Now we're going to go ahead and install this other piece of the frame. We're going to take these 4 screws out, and these 4 screws are just the screws that went in from the side of the frame into the support. I just put them in there so that I wouldn't lose the screws. So we slide, before we slide that on, we need to get out the last 2 washers to the puzzle. Are these 2 big ones. Like the pawls, it goes in between the ratchet and the wood. So this slides onto the end, like so. Same on this side. And then we can go ahead and slide this back on. I'm going to go ahead and put the frame screws back in first. It will help with alignment when you put your end caps on. Okay, so now that those are back together and the loom's got a little bit more rigidity to it, we'll go ahead and put our end caps back on this side. Those slide on, the screws go right back into the existing holes. And last one. And you can see that one kind of moved out a little bit. So I'm going to snug it back up. It wasn't quite lined up. There we go. Okay, so now we have the last piece of the puzzle, and this is the rare earth magnet. It's a very powerful magnet, and the purpose behind this is to keep your pawl locked to your ratchet. Like I was talking about earlier, it'll stay basically in this locked position here, so as you roll it, if your hand slips or some slips, this is going to stay locked, whereas before it was basically just the gravity and the gears that really held it into place. So if this ever came loose, it would flop and this would spin freely. So it is a really nice feature, not only having the metal cog and pawls, which is going to allow you to do really high tension projects, but allowing these to lock is something I really enjoy on the Ashford looms, and now Kromski's introduced it to their looms, and I think it's an awesome feature. I really enjoy working with the locking cog and pawls. So this can be a little bit tricky, but it's not impossible. It's all really going to be about alignment here, and you can see here there's already a hole there. No, that does not come like that from the factory. That is one of Kyle's screw-ups on my first attempt. So they are a little bit difficult to work with because they're such a powerful magnet that it's going to want to jump around and move to anything that's metal. So it takes a little bit of finesse on your part. You can do one of two things. You want to make sure that when you install this magnet, you need to get it as close to the pawl as you can with this in the locking position. You don't want it away from here, and that was my problem. Is my pawl was out a little bit and I installed it and it wasn't engaging on the ratchet. So you want to make sure that that's locked, and that's where the tape comes into play. In the instructions, they actually show you taping this pawl to your cloth beam and your warp beam. I found it a little bit easier for me if I just tightened this down really tight to where it won't move. So I'll show you what worked for me, and then I'll show you also how they recommended it in the instructions. If you suck that down really nice and snug while it's locked in there, I can't move that at all. So it's not going to go anywhere. So now I have that free. I don't have tape in my way. But the tape does work. It's not something I would say not to do. You're more than welcome to use tape, and I think it would work just as well for you. So I think the easiest way to do this is to hold it in place, and if you have a pen or a pencil or a punch or anything that you can puncture the wood just a little bit to see where you can start threading a screw, that's going to be the ideal way to do this. The first time I tried it, I was trying to thread the screw while I was holding the magnet at the same time, and it just didn't work. I was running into problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it with one hand, and I'm going to mark it with a pencil with the other hand, and then I'm going to start the screw and then put the magnet on and finish that. So I'll show you in here as best I can. you want to keep it away from your ratchet. So I don't know if you can see that on the video, but that's a good spot right there. You got about, we'll call it an 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch away from your ratchet, but touching your pawl. And we'll go ahead and just mark that circle there. And I wasn't too far off my first time. I'll go ahead and just push that screw in to mark it. And I will just get it started. It doesn't have pilot holes or anything like that. If you do have access to drill bits, I'd definitely recommend drilling a small pilot hole if you can. Okay, so now that we have that hole started and threaded a little bit, we're going to take our rare earth magnet and one of the 2 small silver screws, and you can actually slide it right inside that hole and the screw won't fall out at all. Which makes things a little bit nice. We're going to go ahead and install this into the hole that we just marked here. Okay, so now that that's done, we're going to go ahead and loosen this to the point where it pretty much, I'll set it down here for you, pretty much to where it's free. You're going to go ahead and flip it up, watch the magic happen. It stays locked for you all the time. So that is the second part of this awesome upgrade. You have the metal cog and pawls, and then you have the rare earth magnet that keeps that locked. I'll show you one more time on this side here. We're gonna take this, make sure that's completely fully engaged. We're gonna tighten that down nice and snug to where it's not gonna move on us. Take our rare earth magnet. We're gonna go right, like I said, it can be a little bit challenging to keep that off of your ratchet. You'll hold it right about there. Go ahead and mark your hole. Whoops. And get my other screw here. And I'm just pushing down on the wood to where it makes an indentation. That's going to kind of act like a punch to where when you put this in and start screwing, that screw is going to follow that hole where you put it. And we'll go ahead and screw this back in here. And if you have any questions during this video at all, you get stumped on a step, you can't quite get something right, we're definitely here to help you out. We want to make sure that you get your loom back up and running in a timely manner so you can start weaving again. Give us a call. My name's Kyle. Feel free to ask for me. I'd love to talk to you and help you out. So again, we loosened that to the point where, whoops, it's nice and loose. And they are completely installed. Not quite done yet. I'm sure you'll be able to figure this out just fine. But we'll go ahead, install our heddle block back in the hole. And that's it. We did it. We installed the Kromski Harp Forte upgrade kit. Quick overview. We basically disassembled the whole loom. You're going to put 2 shim washers on the opposite side of the cog and pawls. You're going to replace the plastic cog and pawls with a new metal cog and pawls, and the last step is installing this really cool rare earth washer that's going to keep this nice and locked, which is going to make your entire weaving process on this loom much easier, and you will love it. It also broadens the range of projects that you can do, because you can now incorporate those really high tension projects that before you couldn't with those plastic cog and pawls. Again, this is Kyle at Paradise Fibers with the Kromski Harp Forte upgrade kit on looms prior to June of 2014. I hope you enjoyed this video. And like I said, don't hesitate to give us a call if you have questions. Our phone number here is 888-320-7746, or check us out on our website, www.paradisefibers.com. Thanks for coming, and I hope you enjoy weaving.